You're now watching the Danny Mac Podcast on the BetRivers Network.
Welcome back into the Danny Mac Podcast on the BetRivers Podcast Network. My name is Dan McNeil, and in case you left the planet, I love professional football. No need to gnash teeth over our local baseball teams being saddled in last place. We are getting so very close to training camp starting, and if you're a football fan like I am, that's what you're thinking about first and foremost. And the Caleb Williams has arrived celebration continues on my show with former USC star, the 88 Pac-10 Offensive Player of the Year, and a 15-year NFL veteran. Rodney Peete is with me today. Number 16, if I can call you number 16. I know you wore a few different ones. Good to have you on board. Thanks for the time. Looking forward to this. I have to assume that your USC pride has to be bursting with Williams being the number one. I heard a recent interview you did on The Score, my old station, and it sounds like you are as excited as Bears fans about the arrival of the new Messiah.
Listen, I am very, very excited, and I understand. You know, when you play in the league, you understand how people can get excited about the number one overall pick and expect things to happen right away. And I'm sure Bears fans expect everything to go right immediately the first moment he steps on the field, and it very well could. But you got the right guy. That's first thing I want to say is you got the right guy. He's got the right temperament. He's got the right attitude. He's going to have the right work ethic. He will bring so much to this team and make everybody better. The more he's there, the more you're going to like him. He's a special kid, so I'm excited to see what he does this year and beyond.
I want to get to the mental component of playing quarterback and all that he's going to be asked to handle, and it's colossal in a big city with big expectations. But first, let's talk a little bit about what he needs to get better at mechanically. The rap on him, and I'm not smart enough to know this, is he could be better in the pocket. Is that an accurate criticism of Williams' early work, and what does he do to get better at that?
Yeah, I mean, only thing you can go by is what you see on tape, right? And so I was actually critical of him at USC at some times of trying to do too much, right? Trying to put the team on his back, which he did oftentimes at USC because he had to. USC had struggled on the offensive line. They struggled in some other areas, and they relied on Caleb to do everything for him. And for the most part, he was able to do that. There are going to be times where he doesn't need to run out of the pocket. He needs to be patient, especially in the NFL. Completions matter. And sometimes you got to take that 3-yard completion. Sometimes you got to take that 4-yard completion and not necessarily go for the big play all the time. And I think there were times where he might have went big play hunting more often than not. And that's something I think he's going to have to work within the system as now he starts his career in the NFL.
I would think even more so with a team that, dare I say, is loaded at receiver. You might be more willing to take those chances. A Dunze is a great go-up-and-get-it guy, and you saw him at Washington. DJ Moore is terrific, and Keenan Allen may end up in the Hall of Fame. So hopefully that's something he can – but, you know, when you hear this stuff about, boy, when everything's falling apart, Williams makes magic. Hit the arm slot, the different angles. You start thinking about Patrick Mahomes, and everybody I've talked to, including Kurt Warner, qualifies to say he reminds me of Patrick Mahomes, but don't think I'm telling you he's going to do what Patrick Mahomes has done. Do you think, Rodney, that's a pretty good comparison?
I think so. I think it's a very good comparison. I think with the arm talent that Caleb has, it's similar. Now we haven't seen Patrick, really arm talent like Patrick Mahomes since maybe Aaron Rodgers came in the league, and but he's different because he does it all over the field and does it at different arm positions, as you mentioned. Caleb is very similar that way. And I think the fact that you just mentioned DJ Moore is already there. He's a veteran guy now. And Keenan Allen coming in, a veteran guy, is going to really help Caleb. There's going to be times where Caleb is going to have to make those kind of plays, where he's going to have to move around, scramble, buy some time, let those guys get open down the field and make some big-time plays. But there's also going to be times where Keenan and DJ Moore are going to be timing routes where he's got to just be on time with it. So his mechanics have to be good. I think they are, but sometimes you get into a trap when things break down, you run around, you got to do different things. But he can make every single throw, and I think that's why people compare him to Patrick Mahomes, because he can throw it to his left, to his right, sidearm, over the top. Anything you ask him to do, he can make the throw, which is a talent that we haven't seen a lot from QBs.
Until the final Friday of the Combine in Indianapolis, there was so much talk. Williams wouldn't come to Chicago. He doesn't want to try and resurrect a franchise that's always gotten it wrong. Man, everything he has said, and they're only words, but everything he has said has been completely opposite of what we were told we were getting. I love his enthusiasm for life. I love the fact that he's willing to fly his freak flag a little bit and paint his fingernails. My quarterback better be a guy comfortable in his own skin enough to handle whatever criticism comes from that. I love everything about this kid. And I think the fact that he's banked, or at least earned, he hasn't banked at all, the government gets a portion, of $12 million plus, I think probably lends some more maturity to a guy coming in here. What do you like about him, the person?
Well, here's the thing. I think him playing at USC the last couple of years, especially the last year. I mean, he won the Heisman the first year he got to USC, and then the amount of attention that you get here in Los Angeles for being at USC, especially if USC is doing well. USC is bigger than the Rams or the Chargers. If USC is winning, USC is next to the Dodgers. You put him up with the Dodgers and the Lakers. And he became a megastar in Los Angeles. And I think that helped him identify and understand and how to deal with media and popularity and all those things, and which he's going to bring to Chicago. And you're absolutely right. You know, sometimes we don't control what media says or other people say about us. Just take us for our face value. When I come in and I say what I'm going to say, then trust me, that's what I'm talking about. And that's Caleb Williams. And I'm glad you said that, because there were a lot of things said about him. But when you get to know him, you understand he's the real deal.
If you were advising young athletes or coaching them today, Rodney, what would be your advice regarding handling social media?
I would just say develop a pause button. Develop a pause button or a pause friend, okay? That would be my number one thing, because everything is so impulsive nowadays, and you want to respond, you want to react. But I think that these guys have enough money now where they can have people around them. Everybody's got their marketing and management and everything around them. Before you send something out, before you hit send, run it by somebody. That would be my biggest advice. Just run it by someone else and let them think about it from an objective point of view. Is this okay to send out? And they may give you, oh, yeah, yes, it's fine. Or they may say, well, I would phrase it a different way. But I think right now, so many people are impulsive that they get mad, or they see something, they react, and they put it out there, and they can't take it back. So find that friend, find that pause button, and then you can go from there.
I'm seeing Draft Day and Kevin Costner advising the great Vontae Mack to stay off Twitter. Man, I love that. That is a great bad movie, isn't it, Rodney?
Yeah.
I know you love the movie industry.
I do. I'm a Costner fan too, but I love that movie. I really do. I think they captured a lot of realness about the draft and all that. They really did.
You know, I thought they did too, with a lot of friends who've been in the league and an agent who represents both coaches and broadcasters over the years. But a lot of people say that's so silly. There might have been some silliness to it, but the strength coach was about as real as it got.
Yeah.
I loved a lot of the front office stuff. I thought it was terrific. Maybe we'll see another one down the road. Maybe you can get a piece of it. You got to do better as a head coach than Dennis Leary.
We'll work on it. Yeah, we'll work on it.
Yeah. You got some connections, I understand, in Lipstick City. We have had to be patient here in Chicago. That's because it's been a long time since Sid Luckman quarterbacked the Bears. There is a real plausible possibility, and this is the other side of the coin. I'm optimistic, don't misunderstand me, but there's a real plausible possibility he's the fourth best quarterback in the division. In a couple of years. And if he's very good, who cares? I guess you'll have to get better around him. But I wonder if you would have any insight as to how you would expect him to handle failure or disappointment for an extended period of time, more than he has. Now, last year wasn't everything he wanted it to be, but he'd already won the Heisman Trophy. He has won at every level. How will he handle disappointment and failure?
Well, the hard part about that question is you don't know until you face it. You really don't. Uh, I mean, I can say from me, even not to the level of winning championships, but I was winning pretty much everywhere I went growing up from 8 years old on, and then get drafted by the Detroit Lions, who had a losing history, and you got to deal with that. You got to go through that. Um, but I think surrounding yourself with the right players and having that maturity to understand that this is a different level, and you got to work towards that goal. And everybody is good. Everybody is good.
Mm-hmm.
Even the teams that end up, 2-15 are good teams on a Sunday. They can be really good. Um, but you really don't know until it really actually tests you. When you're 1-8 to start the season and everybody's coming down on you, how are you going to handle it? Right? I think he's got the maturity to handle it, but we still have to see how in reality is he going to handle it. So
Mm-hmm.
we won't know until it comes about, and hopefully for Bears fans that doesn't happen this year or it doesn't happen in the near future.
Let's talk about the Lions in the division. Do you still consider yourself a Lion? Yes or
I
no?
do, I do. Yeah, they're the team that drafted me, so I still am close to them. I go back for Alumni Day. I went back for a playoff game last year that they had. So I still stay in touch with the Lions, and I still have love for them. And you're right, with Jared Goff there, which you gotta be impressed with him. This guy got ran out of L.A. Could have just hung his head and tucked his tail between his legs, but he goes to Detroit and he's thriving now. Um, they're a good ball club. They're a good franchise now, and they've got the right coach and the right culture in Detroit. And so, I think any team around the league should look at Detroit and go, this was a franchise that was ugly. Everybody complained about it. Nobody wanted to go there. Now look at it and what they've been able to turn around, and it can happen to anybody in any franchise. So I'm so proud of Detroit and what they've been doing. But you're right. Caleb's coming into a division where they've got Jared Goff and Green Bay's got Jordan Love, and they just drafted a kid, going to Minnesota. So it's going to be difficult. He's not, going to be looked upon as the best guy, quarterback in the division. But I think if he gets his Bears going and relies on those veteran players that he's got there, he's going to be all right.
Yeah, Minnesota's J.J. McCarthy, who's a suburban
Yeah.
Chicago kid. Boy, that would make it worse if if he wound up being more productive. I want to park football for a second and talk a little bit about life.
Yeah.
Because, the older we get, the clearer into focus the picture becomes. I was with the White Sox flagship for a number of years, and we did an autism charity outing every year. My son Patrick, who's now 30, was diagnosed in 96. He's still pretty severe, even though he's happy and communicative. But at an outing, Kenny Williams was the White Sox general manager, and he
Yeah.
watched Patrick sing the national anthem. And he asked me a year later, we were in training camp having dinner, and he said, if you don't mind my asking, how tough is it with Patrick when you and the family go out for dinner? It's got to have some horrible challenges. And we talked about those things. And he shared with me the story of your son, Rodney Jr. He said that you were friends and you had
Yeah.
reported to him it can be so dispiriting, and not just for mom and dad, for brothers and sisters who have to witness those behaviors and don't understand it either. How is Rodney Jr. doing these days, and how did autism change your life?
First of all, yeah, thanks for saying that. And Kenny is a good friend. I've known him for forever. When I was being recruited to Stanford, he was there. So, listen, it has made me a better dad, better person, just more understanding. RJ, my son RJ, who's 26 now, has overcome so much. And you mentioned working for the White Sox. When we were, as he was getting older, school was a challenge. And as he started to get older, we started thinking, well, at some point he's going to have to get a job. And we were out looking for a job, and nobody wanted to hire him. Nobody wanted to give him a shot. We would go to restaurants. We would go there was, pet stores. There would be a bunch of things that we went in stores and places that we went to try to get him a job, even with friends that we knew. And it was very difficult. And we got a call from one of our friends from the Dodgers said, Bring him over. Bring him over. We want to meet him, and we'll see what happens. They hired him on the spot. He's been there for 9 years now. And it changed his life. It gave him purpose. It gave him friendships. The players treat him like their little brother. They call him. He house sits for them. They will do anything for him. Every time we go there, we thank the players. Hey, thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thanks for what you do for our son RJ. He didn't have any friends, and he had struggling finding a job, and you guys gave him purpose. So thank you for what he does, for what you guys are doing for him. And they, all of them, to a player and to Dave Roberts, the manager, up to Andrew Friedman, to Mark Walter, the owner, stop us and say, no. It's what RJ does for us. He comes in with a big smile on his face. He gives us these big bear hugs. And if I'm having a bad day, I go see RJ. And he makes it all right.
Man.
And so, as a parent, that just makes you like, that's everything. It's everything. So just my thing is that there's always hope out there, and there's always going to be, just never give up. Bet on your child, and don't try to change your child for the world. Try to change the world around your child, and everything will be okay.
We've come a long way as a nation in understanding the behaviors of autism and other intellectual disabilities, the stimming and rocking, which is like breathing for an autistic infant and even some young adults. Was RJ always desirous of people, or was that something that he grew into?
No, believe it or not, one of the most difficult parts for me, in which I struggled with, and when he was first diagnosed, went into a bit of a depression and denial about, was that RJ was not socially acceptable. He didn't want to be around crowds. His sensories were overloaded, and he could not handle it. So for me, my goal was, when I had my son, at least my first son, I was still playing in the league. So I wanted to bring him in the locker room, because I saw when I was coming through the league, I saw the older players bring their kids in the locker room and get autographs and chin strap and get all jerseys and all that kind of stuff. And then they go to school and talk about it all week long. I want to do the same thing for my kids. I couldn't bring him in the locker room because he would get overloaded, and it drove me crazy. And we finally, at Carolina, in my 14th year in the league, and I was backing up at the time, we made it to the Super Bowl and played the Patriots, actually, in 2003. And RJ couldn't handle the Super Bowl because it was too much for him. And so he's not always been that way. He's not always been accepting to that. You mentioned, when you first started, when Kenny asked you about going to a restaurant and going out, we couldn't take him to the restaurant. We couldn't take him on a plane. Now he loves to travel. Now he loves to fly everywhere. He loves to eat everything. He loves crowds. It's just amazing, the transformation. But that's why you can't give up on any kid, because they can change like anybody else. And RJ's changed, and the Dodgers have helped change his life. But he's thriving now. So thanks for asking.
Man, what victories. ABA therapy, was that a part of it?
Absolutely. We did it all, man. ABA was a big part of it. There was a therapy called Floor Time, which we did a bunch of. We incorporated it all with him to figure out what he gravitated to. Because sometimes if you force it, it may not work for that individual child, because every individual child is different. But we did a smorgasbord, man, and it worked for him.
That's terrific. So good to hear those stories. And I'll make sure we get this out to all of the autism-related Twitter sites. I'm still going to call it Twitter, so they can share this video. Rodney, last thing I want to ask you about, during your National Football League tour of 15 years, which player who wore that silly Navy helmet with an orange C on it gave you the most fits or rang your bell more than any other? Which Bear story do you want to tell?
There's only one. There's Richard Dent. Richard Dent. Richard Dent, he's still my dear friend to this day. I love him to death, but he would always get up to play. I always used to, I mean, we weren't winning anything, but you always got up to play Detroit. You always got us and gave me havoc every time we played you. Why? You know, we weren't Dallas at the time. We weren't the Rams who were able to get played in the playoffs every year. We were Detroit. He said, because I knew I had to go up against Lomas Brown, which was my left tackle, and he was one of the best in the league. And Lomas and him had some great battles. He said, when I had to play against a great player, that's when I knew I had to really turn it on. And sometimes Lomas got him, but oftentimes Richard got Lomas, and I was the recipient of that from Richard Dent. So definitely Dent. I still have an imprint of Dent in my face when I think about playing the Bears.
Hopefully with the new teeth at least.
Yeah.
Although I think the Bears popped for the teeth after the Super Bowl, after they went on the cheap on those rings. I'll have to mention that to Lomas when he previews the Lions season with me next year. He's a regular. Rodney, it's been a pleasure to catch up. Congratulations on all your enormous success, and it begins with RJ and everything you, Holly, and your other children did to bring him through it. It is a family disorder, and without everybody's hands on deck, it stalls. So congrats on that, and go Caleb Williams, and thank you for the visit. I enjoyed it.
You got it. My pleasure, and absolutely. Go Caleb. Fight on.
That's Rodney Peete, a 15-year NFL veteran on the Danny Mac podcast. I want to thank Sam Michael, who is my executive producer on this show. Randy Merkin takes care of getting you all of these A-list guesters. Yeah, that's right. A-list guests, like the new head coach at Alabama, like Kurt Warner, like Jim McMahon. We throw the stars at you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Back again, likely with more football next week. Thanks for watching and listening.